What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another One Piece manga chapter review. And in today's video, we're going to be reading and reacting to One Piece chapter 1060 and discussing the events that are going on throughout the manga as we're reading it. So if you guys enjoy this type of content, please like the video and please subscribe for more, because that type of support greatly helps me continue to do what I'm doing and helps me make more manga related content on this channel. All right, so let's just get into it. The chapter starts off with, "No way in hell, this is a lie. He never killed Vivi's dad." So we're talking about Sabo here. Obviously, I think Sabo is a good person. I don't think Sabo would kill somebody like Vivi's dad, because Cobra isn't necessarily a bad person. When we first get introduced to Cobra, he is a very nice guy. He's actually very helpful to Luffy and his crew, even though they're pirates. And Luffy and his crew says as much. We do know that like Sabo does have like these kind of bloodthirsty moments, but it's usually towards people that are already hostile towards him initially. Like Vice Admiral Bastille, where Sabo is seen like gripping his skull and almost cracking it in a way. That type of bloodlust. But Sabo, for the most part, is a nice person. And we see that pretty much Luffy's like, let's set course for Arabasta right now. Let's go there. And this is also because Vivi is missing. After the events that went down at Maryjoy, Vivi has gone missing. So maybe she's been kidnapped. Maybe she's laying low. Maybe there's some deeper scheme. I kind of find it hard to believe that Sabo killed Cobra. And I think it was probably the Celestials or the Gorosei that killed Cobra and tried to cover it up and blame Sabo. Because maybe Cobra knew something that he shouldn't have known, and they couldn't take a chance of that getting out. And he was killing two birds with one stone to make Sabo look like the criminal here. But yeah, Luffy and his crew, they're like, let's set course for Arabasta. We see Caribou hiding in one of the barrels, and he's just like, oh man, what? We're going to Maryjoy. He's like, oh no, 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 no. But Zoro is the voice of reason. He's the calm one here. He's saying, you moron, that's the den of the enemy. You want to take on Navy HQ. And everybody else is panicking, everybody else is emotional, but Zoro reminds Luffy of what he said about Ace. And we see this flashback of where Luffy says Ace has his own adventures, and Zoro makes a further point. You trusted him to make his own way up until the point where he actually needed help. So why underestimate Vivi? She can hold her own. And that's pretty much true. When we first see Vivi, she's not like this defenseless damsel in distress. She's actually able to hold her own a little bit in some fights. And granted, I think what Zoro's saying is true. Once you reach Luffy's level and Luffy's caliber as a Yonko, you can't just kind of drop everything you have going on just to travel halfway across the ocean just to help somebody that may or may not need your help, right? Luffy has a lot of things that he still needs to accomplish. We're still looking for the last poneglyph. You just came off of beating Kaido. You have this huge bounty on your head. There's just a lot of things coming and a lot of things that are still developing, and I think Zoro's making a further point. If you're gonna drop everything you're doing to go help out somebody just because they seem like they're in a bind, you're not trusting them to be able to get out of the bind themselves unless they explicitly ask you for help, right? And on top of that, Luffy has a lot of friends. Let's just be honest. Luffy has the ability to make people very friendly towards him, or to make them allies. If you're dropping everything that you're doing every second to go help your allies, the moment they face an inconvenience, you're never going to get anything accomplished. But Luffy's like, you can't stop us from worrying. And everybody's just making fun of Zoro. They're calling him the Green Kaido and Oni, Green Mom, Mosshead. It's just wild. and Robin is telling Luffy that Buggy became Yonko, and Luffy's like, there has to be some mix-up, and that's exactly what happened. As we can see, it was supposed to be more so of an equal partnership between Crocodile and Mihawk and Buggy, are more so like them taking leadership positions and kind of taking Buggy's like whole organization. But what ended up happening is like Buggy's underlings, they thought so highly of Buggy that they ended up making his face bigger on like the flyers, the promotional stuff for the organization. And because he was more prominent on the flyers, everybody thinks that Buggy's the leader and the Mihawk and Crocodile are subordinates. And then we see in I think another chapter that obviously Buggy's actually been beaten within an inch of his life. uh they're holding his head, and Buggy's like, I'll lick your boots, please just spare my life, and all this other stuff. And so Mihawk and Crocodile actually deem it more useful for Buggy to be the Yonko because it takes heat off their backs. um Honestly, with that whole situation with Mihawk and Crocodile and Buggy, I like the idea of Buggy as a Yonko. I just wish Buggy actually had some type of fighting ability. I just wish that Buggy at this point would just train, that he would just show us some type of potential, man. Because he's been on Goldie Rogers' crew. He's been there. He's been in the fights. He's been at Ground Zero. He's seen some things. You would think that he would carry some type of confidence with him to fight. And I know it's like a running gag that Buggy's just like this super weak character, and he's just gonna fumble his way all the way up to like Pirate King or something. Like everybody's like, he's gonna fumble his way to Yonko. Well, we're there now. But I would just like to see the power match the title to some extent. At least I want to see Buggy be stronger than he was when we first saw him at the start of the anime, and we're just not seeing that. We're just seeing people just kind of just pushing him around. But then granted, it's Crocodile and Mihawk, so like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Mihawk, I'm thinking maybe, Buggy would kind of probably give him a run for his money because of his devil fruit ability, but Crocodile, not so much. But getting back to the manga, Luffy then begins to talk about how Sabo's innocent and the character Sabo has, and he talks about how the three of them swore an oath, and he talks about his own personal dream that he wants. And we see these varying reactions amongst the crew. Shock from Zoro and Nami, Brooke laughing. Usopp is like, are you serious? Frankie's like, oh, that sounds great, it's perfect. And then Sanji's like, yeah, you need to check this guy's head, something's wrong with him. And everybody's just saying that the dream that Luffy's having, and the manga's not telling us exactly what it is, but everybody's saying that you'd have to be the Pirate King to pull something like that off in the first place. And even then, that's a stretch, right? And it just makes me more interested in like, what is his dream? What is it exactly? Like, I don't know, what is it? Because we see some of the Yonko have some of these far-fetched ideas. Like Big Mom, she wanted to have a tea party with everybody, and she wanted everybody to be at eye level, and so she was willing to try to research technology to turn kids into giants in order to have her children and other people sit with her at eye level. I think that's pretty interesting. Okay. And then now we get back to like Navy HQ. They're tracking Sabo's communication channels, and Sabo's sending out a message to Kambaka Queendom, but he's also calling from a kingdom called Lelucia, and it is one of the 8 nations that rebelled. And so we see M in another panel, and the Gorosei is just like, I see, he's an unlucky man. And they're just like, no, this is fate. So Sabo, we see, is just kind of like bruised up a little bit. He has a bandage on his nose. He's kind of really really anxious, and he's talking to Dragon's like, you know, listening tentatively, and he's like, I wasn't the one who killed King Cobra. And he was explaining that he saw something. He went to the throne room, and Sabo was like, I thought it would be empty. I thought that there was no king of the world, but I saw something there. And we see on the island that he's on, the kingdom of Lelucia, that people are seeing something huge in the clouds above, and that there's a storm, like there's just something like just gathering above the island. And before Sabo can get the message out at what he saw in the throne room at Pangea Castle, we see M, or Emu, and we see his eyes. And then we see these rays of light, these just beams, just bombard the island and just wipe it out of the face, like off the face of the planet. Just wipe it out of existence. Everybody there is just completely obliterated. The planet is obliterated. And we see the panel saying, as for Lelucia, that country never existed. And we see zoom ups of Emu's eyes. And so, like, if this is Emu's power, then it makes me wonder, why haven't we pulled out this a lot sooner? Like, this is like the equivalent of an orbital bombardment in Star Wars from like a super star destroyer, or like a star destroyer itself, you know? This is the pinnacle of destructive power. All right, you're calling in an orbital airstrike to nuke somebody halfway across the planet. That's the type of power that M seemingly has. Which makes me beg the question, if you have this type of power, why haven't you used this more? All right, you know where the Yonko are. You can use a tactical bombardment on them at any point and wipe them off the face of the earth. What are we doing? What are we doing? Some of the biggest threats in One Piece, we could have solved this all with a tactical bombardment. All right, when you have this type of power that Emu is seemingly displaying, everything begins to look like a orbital, or, you know, tactical bombardment shaped hole, and you have the key. All right, everything begins to look like it can be solved by nuking it from orbit halfway across the planet. If all he needs is the location of where he's about to strike, and the Navy has that type of ability, that type of potential, that type of technology to trace communication from various kingdoms, various islands all across the world. Hell, they even knew when Whitebeard and Shanks had intercepted each other and communicated. They even knew when Shanks was intercepting Kaido, right? If you wield that type of potential, you could basically shut everything down, right? My personal thing is, I think the reason we haven't seen this used is because they don't want the world to know of M's existence and his power, right? It's one thing to just kind of watch the pirates, make sure they're not doing anything too crazy. It's another thing to you know, have the revolutionaries like taking over kingdoms and stuff like that. That's another thing. You know, you can always, you know, take back the kingdoms. You could always insert some type of puppet government or whatever. But when the revolutionaries directly attacked Maryjoy and Sabo entered the throne room, he saw something he shouldn't have saw. Right? He saw something he shouldn't have saw, and they couldn't take that type of risk. And if you have the power to wipe an entire kingdom off the face of the earth, you sure as hell don't want every other kingdom to know that you have that type of power freely, right? I think only a handful of people know that M has this power, and that's what keeps all the kingdoms in line. Not only just the fact that, you know, hey, you're celestial dragons, you know, you're from these noble bloodlines that help form the world government, so you have perks and privileges of being here, but it's also that fear. If you step out of line, there's an orbital airstrike for you, and we're gonna wipe out your fucking kingdom. All right. So you better get in line, and you better follow orders. Having that type of power is what maintains the world order itself, right? But it also goes to question if, like, did Doflamingo know this? Because Doflamingo, as a celestial dragon, he bribed his way back. He bribed his way to get Shichibukai status and to get celestial dragon privileges because he knows information that would be really bad for the world government. They knew that this man was sitting in Dressrosa. Why aren't we just nuking it from orbit? All right, like, if the world government was that concerned about Doflamingo, right, that they would feel the need to give him celestial dragon privileges, pretty much keep him as a Shichibukai, and when he gets captured, brings him all the way to Impel Down, and potentially even sends an assassin after him, why are we just not nuking Dressrosa? Is it the fact that he comes from a celestial dragon bloodline and it sets a bad precedent with the other celestial dragons if we nuke it from orbit, you know? If it's like, if you're willing to attack celestial dragon, then all of us can be attacked, and, you know, that just kind of messes with their sense of invincibility, I guess. You don't want to nuke Doflamingo, even though he's no longer a celestial dragon technically, because then it starts spooking the other celestial dragons. But no. You don't want to spook them because those are your little pigs. Those are your little cash cows. Those are the people that whose financial support you need, whose legacy gives the world government legitimacy. You don't want to spook them, you know. They're your little lemmings. They're just like your little fools. You just need them to be in these little puppet government positions. Right? So I think it was easier for them to give Doflamingo what he wanted, but also kept like a close watch on him versus just nuking him and nuking Dressrosa, which is one of the kingdoms and, you know, belongs to one of the celestial dragon families, and creating potential problems with the rest of the celestial dragons, right? But we also see that this created sea quakes. But a few days later, we see Luffy and his crew on their ship, the Thousand Sunny, and they're in like this very icy climate, and there's like a lot of maelstroms, there's storms, there's winds, furious. Everybody's really dressed up for the cold weather, and they see this huge swirling mass of water, and it's compared to being a giant warm eddy, or like an eddy current, and it's looking like it's almost like a cage to keep somebody in there, right? And Luffy notices that somebody's trapped in the water, but everybody's just like, how could anyone be alive in this? Is it a mermaid? And so Zoro is just like, I'll cut it. And the moment he cuts through it, we see somebody's coming out, and it is Jewelry Bonnie in a younger form. As we see, her bounty's at 320 million, but yeah, we see Jewelry Bonnie and she's smaller. Like, why is she imprisoned in a giant eddy current in the middle of the ocean? How is she able to survive this as a devil fruit user? And 3, why is she a kid? So many questions. I'm not, to be honest, I'm not really concerned about Jewelry Bonnie, to be honest. I don't really care for her. I know that she ties into some other things like Akinu, Whitebeard, just maybe even Kuma. Like, I know that she ties into stuff like that, but like, as far as her own character and like her own journey, it's just been very uninteresting, you know? And I feel bad for Jewelry Bonnie because she's just had like a really rough way of things, right? Things happened to Kuma. She almost got captured. She got captured by Akainu. She got captured by Blackbeard. You know, she's just been having a rough way of it. Just honestly, a rough way of it. And with the supernovas, compared to like Eustace, Law, and Luffy, everybody just kind of seems to be trailing behind. And Jewelry Bonnie is just one of those characters that drastically trails behind everybody else. All right. So I'm hoping that they do more with her character going forward. But what do you guys think about One Piece chapter 1060? And if you like my discussion, you like my reaction and the commentary about it, subscribe. We can actually have a discussion on this chapter, theories about what's going to happen in the next few chapters. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.